Hello again. I'm Alexandra at Rigazzi-Tarling and I'm with Lucia Guerin and we are tutors for the College of Sound Healing in the UK and Ireland. And Lucia and I have been talking for some months now, I think, haven't we?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we're talking about our sound healing with the voice practitioner training that we offer through the college. And parts one and two that you can find on our websites and social media talk about part one of the course and part two of the course. And today we're here to talk about part three of the course, and this is a five-part training. So part three we're sort of midway, and part three is entitled Music as Medicine, and we begin to look at the emotional energy body. So we begin with ourselves and with the physical, and we gradually work out through the energy bodies. And so, part three, the main focus is what's happening in the emotional body. And we use musical intervals and scales to start to move the energy of the emotional body. So, quite a big topic of discussion, really, isn't it, Lucia? I think we'll have to streamline it for this.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different directions we can go for sure. And what I do like about, well, I love the title Music for, as Medicine, and I know you're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But what I'd like to also add in terms of the emotional body is that it links in, I'm a yoga teacher, so it also links in with the five koshas that we learn in our yogic tradition. And these are the energetic layers that surround the soul. So in that part two weekend where we learned how to work with the physical body, which is the first kosha, and in this part three, we're working with it's the third kosha, the kosha of the mind and the emotions. So it's lovely that there's also other maps and other traditions that also fit into how we're working with sound. So it's
Absolutely,
nice
and of
to know
course,
that.
I think we always say, don't we, on the course, because this type of training attracts so many different people from different backgrounds, and um, always with these things, we're looking at we're not looking at one way of doing something. We're looking at a general way, and perhaps using a sort of generalized map of the energy system, the
Yeah.
chakras, for example, and we're very clear about that. That there
Mm.
is no one way of doing it, and I think it's wonderful that you can relate that into the yoga tradition as well, because so many people that come on the course um, are
Yeah.
yoga practitioners and so on. So yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And in terms of we're using our voice still, so it's sound healing with the voice, and we start to look at how we can use scales. And of course, if you're a musician, you might be thinking, scales? What
Mm.
scales? The things that I've used to practice my singing or practice my violin or piano, and it sometimes comes with a little bit of a negative connotation because
Yeah,
of,
that it's almost too simplistic.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, if anything, in that simplicity is great power, because what we're doing is using a simple scale. So I mean, there are so many scales, particularly in Eastern music as well. We're not just
Mhm.
looking at the West here, but we're looking at an ordered set of notes, and that begins on a fundamental and, and a series of notes after that. And what we're actually looking at, and I think this is what we discussed, Lucia, wasn't it? That each interval will have an effect on our emotions, even just listening to simple intervals one after the other. And I don't think it's something that necessarily people do, because we listen to intervals in songs or pieces of
Mm.
music and they're ordered. The composer writes a piece of music and orders the intervals to create that piece of music, but we don't often just listen to one interval being gently played after the other. And so in this part three, that's exactly what we're doing. And I know you spoke about naked voice work with
Mm.
in that context as well.
Yeah, yeah. With naked voice work, which is also a training that I've done, we talk a lot about the modes, the different scales that have different emotional effects. So we can have a mode that's like the Ionian mode or the Aeolian mode, which, one of them is really happy and it's like, the mode that you have the nursery rhymes in, twinkle, twinkle. And then you might have the Ionian mode, which has a lot of sort of sadness. And it's the same notes, but ordered in a different way that, when you sing them, you'll feel it. And I guess that's what we're inviting to a client or inviting to an emotional body to connect with whatever emotion that they're feeling, that they may need to release, and we're offering them that range so that whatever they connect to can bubble up to the surface. So it's such a powerful way of working with people.
It's that fundamental idea, isn't it, that our energy stagnates in the energy field. Ideally, we just have beautiful flowing energy fields, and there wouldn't
Mm,
be any blockages or stagnant energy. And that this idea that actually dissonance, so a sound that perhaps doesn't sound so good.
mm,
And we use the example of the minor second in the course. So this is the Jaws theme, the da 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 da. And when those two intervals are played, sorry, those two notes are played together, that can be quite a
yes,
powerful thing
very.
to listen to.
Yeah.
And that's actually, this sort of effect once we can get past the mental
Mm,
conditioning
mm,
that we
mm,
hold around these sounds. And I think that's huge, isn't it, on the course? It's actually being able to listen and sound
mm, mm.
without judgment and without
So the information is how that makes you feel or what you notice in your body when you make those sounds. And the other two notes that I love are, are that song Maria, and it takes you from here and it opens the heart so wide. And just those two notes, just lifting and opening, has they just they change how you are in a moment, or they can, I mean, for me, they connect into that just beautiful open heart. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I suppose as well, it might not be something that people have even considered in terms of healing, because you
Mm,
might listen to West Side Story, Maria, and sing the song, but you might know that that feels
yeah,
wonderful to sing or to listen to. But what about just taking that interval and
yeah.
working with
Oh,
happens
yeah.
in what happens in the body? And
Mm,
I guess that's what we're doing at part three. And we form one-to-one therapeutic protocols using scales, using intervals. But of course, this work translates to a sort of a much wider sense with that, because although we're using this one-to-one, at the end of the day, we could be making um, music for groups. We could be singing with groups. It's very much
yeah.
everything sort of translates over. I mean, we work with the course one-to-one with clients, but as a whole, we're working with the principles of sound and the principles of sound healing. So I think that sometimes people think, oh, scales, or what we're talking about, and actually all of that jargon, nothing matters really. At the end of the day, what we're there to experience is the power of those sounds on the body.
Mm,
And we
mm,
can
mm.
explain it, and there's a course book and there's all that stuff, but we're more interested in how does it feel to receive those sounds, and how does it feel to offer those sounds.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
That forms the basis of the weekend. Um,
Yeah, and we were talking just before we got on here about how even teaching this weekend can be an emotional journey for the participants, because in really noticing that, of course, we're going through it. So the weekend can be quite a strong weekend. This is one of the really strong weekends of our, probably the most, I think you used the word chaotic earlier
no, I
on.
don't know what I said. I said turbulent.
Maybe that was it. Yeah,
Turbulent, yeah. So
yeah.
there's sort of, because we're working, I mean, certainly we give and receive the treatments
Mm,
both days, but before that we're working with interval meditations,
yeah.
listening to intervals. So people are getting 2 full days.
Yes.
Working
Working on the
on
emotional body. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it can be, I would say, yeah, it can be a bit of a bumpy ride. I don't like to sow that seed, but
I know.
if there's stuff to be released,
Yeah,
it tends to come up and show itself,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's okay. I mean,
Absolutely, because it's so well held. It's well held in the framework of the sound, but it's also well held within the framework of the course. So,
exactly. And everyone is working together as a group, so there's that sort of element of support,
yeah,
which I
yeah.
always find so endearing, actually, that
Mm,
people from all over the place sort of come together and work in that way. And the one thing, just to add on here, but the one thing that I noticed that students say to me is that they don't find that sense of being held or being allowed to be themselves through that sound in any other place. That actually, they work on the weekends and then they go back to their lives and they're trying to instill the principles of what we're working with and doing the case studies and so on. But it's such a relief for them when they come back to
Mm.
the sessions because they can truly explore who they are and how they feel in those weekends. And I'm sure you find the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that conversation that I will have in between with students, and because obviously they're sending in case studies, there's reviews going on, and that, so there is a lot of support in between the weekends as well, between the participants themselves. Certainly this course, and probably most of them, they've created a WhatsApp group. They're experimenting. It's actually really, really heartwarming. I think they're going to know about more about sound at the end of this course than I do, because particularly this group of people are just blown away by what they've learned already. And um, I love the sense of empowerment that this course gives them as well. Go away, try this, see how it feels on the body, and then you try other things. So it's been very exciting actually.
Absolutely. And I think they get to try it obviously for themselves, giving receive the treatments on the weekend. But then, the courage comes, can they take this out and
Mm,
work on other people and of course their case studies. So it's not about performance, it's just about trying it and and feeling that you're working with someone who's happy to be that case study. And then I think they're amazed at how by following the simple protocols and by working with the power of intention and entrainment and all the things we've discussed in previous videos,
mm,
that the people they're working on go very deep into the treatment, experience all sorts of things, that they say, and especially people, that are used to working with energy,
mm,
receive these
mm.
treatments and are amazed at the simplicity yet the power of what they've experienced. And I think that really does it, doesn't it? When someone goes away and tries it outside of the group
Yeah,
and then gets this feedback, I think it's
yeah,
even.
and it completely builds confidence as well for working with people.
And
Yeah.
it is about that confidence. And we've talked quite a lot about the personal development through voice.
Mm,
And the thing that, sometimes people say is like, oh, it's okay, I feel happy to do it here with you all. But when it's just me taking it out there and using my voice, oh, it takes real courage. And it does take courage, doesn't it? It takes that courage to say, this is my voice, and we all have this instrument
mm,
within us. And whether I use that with pure tone, simple, vowel sounds, pure tone, or whether we start to work with intervals or later part 4 we'll talk about the bija mantras and so on, that actually they are giving themselves permission to use this incredible healing vibratory tool
mm.
that is natural in their body, and they take that out and they do, it's hard, I think, in this, perhaps this day and age. Gosh, in a year or so, maybe 2 years, maybe the voice work will have grown even more
Yeah,
and everyone will
yeah.
be doing it. But it is hard for people because in society, unless you sound like a singer, a pop singer, or an opera singer, you're fitting into a genre. Whereas
Mm,
here, we're just using the sound that we have.
yeah,
And it does build confidence,
yeah.
but it's
And the pure intention of healing, of course.
exactly
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that journey in itself of personal development, having the confidence to trust your
Mm,
sound
mm.
and to be
Yeah,
with it, I think
absolutely.
is huge.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I'm thinking of at the moment is, and I've obviously known this, that we've run this course so many times now, but it's nice to know that there's a progression through the 5 weekends. We go deeper and deeper with each weekend. And I think that's what I'm really getting in these conversations, is that the structure and the way this course is mapped out really holds a person to move through those, I can say, the 5 CoSHs, or to move through the energy body through the whole of the 5 weekends. So yeah, it's really
Absolutely.
nice to see that there's that structure there.
Yes, and really
Sorry,
get into the nitty gritty.
Simon. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think part 3, getting to that, getting really deep into that
Mm.
and seeing, and so where's it going to go now?
Yeah.
Part
Yeah.
4, part 5.
Mm,
It's a
mm,
very
mm.
exciting time.
Yeah.
Um, we were going to talk very briefly about using the musical intervals with a drone and using them just on their own, and that the musical interval can be created by playing two notes at the same time or created by sounding notes consecutively. And we have two protocols for that, don't we? When we're talking about the drone, I don't know, do you want to talk about your experience
Sure.
working with the
Yeah, so we use we use a drone, which basically all a drone is holding the root note, the fundamental note, and we have recordings that'll help you to do that, that you can put on repeat so that you've got that, or you may have a shruti box or some instrument yourself that you can use. And for me, that drone note keeps me rooted and keeps the person that I'm working with really rooted into the ground, into their physical body, into that root chakra. So it keeps them really grounded. And from there, we use that drone note and we start climbing up through the scales. So I have a sense of that really opening up that emotional body gently as we move through the scale and back down again. So we can even think of that as sort of really just opening up and coming home. And each time we move up to another note or higher in the scale, is that sense of opening even further and coming back down. So I really love that drone note that keeps us in that really grounded place. But we also do have another protocol. So yeah, what's your experience of the
with the drone or without?
maybe with the scale without? Yeah.
Well, certainly, I think what you're saying about using the drone there is very powerful, and it really keeps you in your body. And if anything, it sort of feels like it's a sort of dredging effect of emotions. You feel
Yeah.
this
Mm,
quite
mm.
a resistance sometimes.
And they,
Whereas, sorry,
yeah,
yes. So using the scale without the drone, you don't have that sort of
oh,
grounded pull. Yeah, that starting point. So the scales are used repeatedly in patterns, and there's quite a hypnotic effect to that because someone is just sounding the same pattern over and over. And so the both the effects of the intervals and that repetition take you to, I mean, an altered state quite quickly. And without the drone holding you in your body, you're able to really travel out
yeah.
into your energy field and out into the subtle bodies.
Mm,
And it's some people comment on how they feel like they've stayed very present, yet they've gone to this wonderful sort of place of expansion. And I guess that's really at the heart of it, isn't it? It's being able to stay aware, keep
mm,
the eye of
mm, mm,
awareness,
mm.
to travel out into those energetic bodies.
Yeah,
And they're two very different experiences with the drone and without, and people will have their preference for sure. Um, but the two can be used for different things depending on the effect that's needed.
yeah.
And it's, with these scales we use pure tone with the voice, so we're just sounding on an ooh or an ah sound, and we also bring in some sounds from the Sanskrit lineage as well, coupled with the intervals. So
Mm,
everything together creates, there are all these sort of different aspects of it, but certainly even bringing the Sanskrit sounds takes us to
absolutely. That
really
whole lineage,
power of
yeah.
that lineage. Yeah. It's well, it has to be experienced. Oh, how come do the course?
Or find a sound healer to work with. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I love both. And as you say, they're both very different, but both have a very, very profound effect.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah,
But that's part three, really, isn't it? That's what we get up to, and it sounds like, I guess, quite simple, but is layered and quite an exploration into your own, again, into your own energy field and into the energy field of other people that you're working with.
yeah. And coming back to that music as medicine.
Exactly, that
Yeah.
we are and can be exposed to all the time.
Mm, mm, mm.
And we start to listen to music quite differently once we have this information,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that knowing in the body.
that knowing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
lovely.
Gorgeous, Alexandra. That was
Well, it's always a pleasure,
really interesting
and
conversation.
I look forward
Yeah,
to we look forward to part four now. It just gives us
yeah.
opportunity to talk. But if you're interested in our work, then the best
Mm.
place to check in is the College of Sound Healing website, which is www.collegeofsoundhealing.co.uk. And we have, as we've said before, but we have lots of wonderful tutors based all around the UK and Ireland offering practitioner trainings across the sound healing world. So, from voice to gong and bowls and drums, lots of wonderful related workshops. So, even if you just want to dip your toe in and see what's going on, have a look at the website and see if there's a practitioner and tutor near you. Because I know lots of our practitioner members offer sound baths and group work all across the country. So,
Yeah.
there's lots of opportunities to get involved in this if you think, you want to try it out. So, lovely. Well, thank
Lovely.
you, Lucia. It's been a pleasure, and
Absolutely. My
thank
pleasure.
you everyone for listening again.
Great.